This is specifically about three people. Those three people are myself, Seth Franco, and Natalie Bollinger. Um, I should explain to you that we all grew up in the system. All of us had parents that were more interested in violent spouses and drugs than they were in actually being decent parents. Um, I suppose this video ought to be about educating y'all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you some stuff, and some of it's pretty old, but mind you, I was born in 1980. Seth Franco and Natalie Bollinger were both born much later than that. This same system is pretty much America-wide. Once you are called mentally ill, you no longer have any rights. You're no longer a human being to the rest of society, especially not to the courts. Now, you can bypass that a little bit by being pretty and young, and female, of course. In most other cases, it's not going to do you any good to the courts. I mean, if you're not young and pretty, you're looking at a rough time. Now, that being said, there is still a lot of opportunities that you have. Like, first of all, if you're not guilty, you're not guilty. You don't get that opportunity if you're homeless. But if you live in a house, you do have some rights that other people don't have. You also have that fear of losing your house, losing your kids, losing everything that you got because you're sitting in jail for a crime that you didn't commit. And the DA comes to you and says, hey, man, I'll tell you what, if you plead guilty, we'll give you time served and 2 years probation. Then at the very end of the 2 years probation, probably about 20 months, they try to make something up to bust you on so they can keep you rolling through the system. It's stupid. Let's see. All of us were drugged a lot. Here's one. Copy link address. Use of psychotropic drugs in foster children, which is the system that myself, Seth Franco, and Natalie Bollinger were all in. There's actually a pretty long one. It's from Diane Sawyer. And my God, there's a lot on here. I'm trying to find the full video, but I guess that's not going to happen. Let's see. Copy link address. Foster kids are drugged on average 13 times what other children are. Most of them are victims of trauma. Seth Franco was suicidal. I'm sure he was pushed to it. Just too much trauma. Natalie Bollinger had been pushed to that much trauma by the time I met her. She was only 13 when I met her. She was down there selling drugs for her dad. Not cool. Now, Seth Franco, because he won as much money as he did, his story is pretty big. So I'm going to type his name in here, and I'm going to allow you to read his story. It says he wanted to be heard. You know who else wanted to be heard? Me. I wasn't heard. I want you to check this out. I knew this man in real life. He was always good to me in real life, and I was always good to him. After Natalie died, he typed some pretty mean stuff. I replied to that mean stuff that he typed, and then I found out that he was dead. Do I feel bad about the things that I typed? No. I mean, I got to look at it like this. It's important to be honest. Now, there have been times where I have had to be dishonest to try to get a court date. You know how much that sucks? That's completely stupid, and that's just because of the title of mentally ill. Now, when they write laws around being mentally ill, they work with the worst case scenario, and everybody gets grouped into that. The best way I can explain it is most mass murderers are white males, correct? Well, let's imagine treating all white males in the United States the way that we see black people being treated on TV, being shot by the police, having guns and drugs planted on them, and it's on the police officers' body cameras. We, as children, had to deal with a corrupt court system. It's still corrupt when you become an adult. They go after whoever's easiest to victimize, which is the whole reason for drugging the shit out of children. A lot of the drugs that they wanted to put into the people around me, I'm going, oh my God, why would they? I've seen the effects of these medications. They're not okay. In some cases, I've actually been on the medications themselves. They're horrible. The laws around when you call somebody mentally ill are specifically based on somebody who is a severe schizophrenic. I'm not joking. Read the laws, find out what they say. Unless you are a severe schizophrenic, you should not be called mentally ill. If you are scared for a reason, you're scared for a reason. If you're scared to go home because your dad will beat you and rape you, you are afraid to go home for a reason. Now, maybe your dad does it every night, and that's horrible. But let's say he doesn't do it every night. Do your friends get to pretend like you're just being paranoid because you're not going to go home to that every single night? And I'm sorry, there's a train going by. Like, sure, your dad only beats you or rapes you 3 times a week. Does that make it okay? No, it doesn't. It does not make it okay. I don't know if Seth Franco had to go through that. I'm sure you, when reading the article, will figure out quite a bit, though. Boys are not allowed to speak up. We're not allowed to be victims. We're not allowed. Going to the police when we are victimized is a horrible experience. When you are called mentally ill, you don't have any rights. And then when you're homeless on top of it, I mean, you are number one on police officers' list of being able to kill somebody. Do you know why police kill so many homeless people despite the fact that there aren't a whole lot of homeless people? A lot of those people join the police force so they carry a gun because they want to shoot someone. Now, I get that that was in a movie called The Departed, And in that movie, that's what Leonardo DiCaprio was talking about. How those officers joined the force because they wanted to shoot somebody. Why? If I was to be a police officer, it would be to try to save lives, not take them. If you're going to shoot somebody, I mean, why would you do that? I can understand if there's a situation where it's the life of an adult versus the life of a child and you don't want the child to die. I can understand if there are people out there who can pull the trigger. The thing about being able to kill somebody, most human beings have the physical ability to do so. But why would you? What is your motivation in doing so? Why would you even think about doing that to another human being? And don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of horrible things happen to me, and I have thought of a great many horrible things myself. Mostly things that I would say to some of these people if I saw them in real life. And I've actually seen some of them in real life. And did I say those terrible things to them? No, I did not. I didn't make a scene in Walmart. I did not make a scene in Menards. That's a country outfitting store, by the way. I'm not talking about my genitalia. I know a lot of you who grew up in the 1980s. When you talk about someone's nards, you're talking about kicking them in their, you know. Now, the situation as the courts stand, the situation as all of this stands, is that people who are called mentally ill have less rights than anyone else. It is just assumed that homeless people are mentally ill and drug addicts and worse, and that that's the reason that they're homeless. The number one reason for women to be homeless is fleeing domestic abuse. So get them notions out of your head. And before you go telling yourself that the women are always the victims and, it's well, these men obviously aren't all out there because they're victimized. No, they are. Many of them because they are vulnerable adults. It is illegal to victimize them because it results in extreme poverty and cruelty. Homelessness is cruelty. If you want to commit a crime against somebody and get away with it, you go do it to a homeless person because the cops probably aren't going to take a report. The news media is not going to pick it up. They don't care. The public wants to hate homeless people. Now, I knew Seth Franco when I was homeless. I knew Natalie Bollinger when I was homeless. There was a lot of people who hung out down by the library. Most of them were homeless. And there were a lot of people who sold drugs down there. Natalie Bollinger and her twin sister Alicia, they were two of the people down there selling drugs. They were selling them for their dad, Ted Bollinger. A lot of people donated money to his GoFundMe, and he spent it on a vacation to Boston. It was supposed to be for his daughter's funeral. When those investigators saw her, when they saw her twin sister, yeah, that's what Natalie looked like before Joseph Michael Lopez put a bullet through her head. Mostly. Natalie had to go through the same stuff growing up that I did, being raped, being molested. For her, it was from her family mostly. I say mostly because when you're in the system, it doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl, somebody's going to have some poor boundary issues, and they're going to touch you in ways that they're not supposed to. Alicia Bollinger's had to go through the same shit. You know who originally turned in Ted? You know who is responsible for Ted's couple of years in prison before Natalie died? It was for abusing Natalie. Alicia Bollinger was the hero to her sister that day because she told on that son of a bitch. What Shelley had to say about Ted Bollinger, yeah, he's a terrible excuse for a human being, according to her. Same thing with Natalie's real mother, Rose. Natalie and Alicia were scared shitless of him. They were trying to get Natalie's stepmother, Shelley, to move to Virginia with their siblings to get away from Ted. That was while I was in Virginia in 2016. We were friends because we went through the same hell. She was always good to me in real life, like face to face, real life. The only time that I ever saw Natalie was when she came in to my life, when she came to where I was. If I was visiting my older brother, or if I was visiting Mobley, or Christine, or any other number of homeless homies of mine, making sure they're all right. I got to see a lot of people, a lot of younger people who didn't need to be there, and I tried to scare them off. A lot of us did. Like, hey, kid, this is obviously not the place for you. I understand shit is hell at home. My home life was hell. Seth Franco, you're going to get to read about that too. His life was hell. This is the stuff that we have to deal with. And then in the courts, we're not heard. We're treated like we're animals. Meanwhile, you get to see how many police officers are sociopaths. I mean, it's obscene how many of them believe that that's okay. When I was in prison, they didn't tell those people in prison what I was charged with. So in the prison, they assumed number one, that because I'm in prison, it means that I've been found guilty. Well, no, I was a county safekeep. Also, I was not charged with felonies, I was charged with misdemeanors. When you're on the bottom, they know exactly how to take care of you. They know that you don't have the money for a real lawyer, and they know that they're not going to investigate themselves. They're going to look for any excuse not to listen to the victim when the victim is harmed by police. So you have to have the money for a civil lawyer. It's a running joke with law enforcement. Oh, you can get a lawyer when you get out. Like it's that easy. I mean, here you are, you're spending months locked up behind bars. Meanwhile, if you were able to make a phone call, well, you'd be able to get your ass out of there because you're in there for bullshit. They got a phone call list when you go to prison. And for security reasons, you have to have the name, address, and phone number of the person you're trying to contact. And then you have to wait 10 days in order to get a PIN number. And that PIN number allows you to make outgoing calls, but only to numbers that are approved by the prison. They repeatedly denied me the right to speak to my autism advocate. They repeatedly denied me the right to speak to my lawyer. It was almost 40 days after I was sent to the prison that I finally got to talk to my public pretender, Robert Harvoy, who I had already fired. I fired him once. He said that he wanted to verify. He assured me that he was going to do his job. I said, all right, I'll go with you, if you say you're actually going to do your job. But he didn't. Thank goodness the lady that I got out of Scotts Bluff did her job. If he'd have even made some effort, some tiny effort to do his goddamn job, if only I were allowed, while in prison, to record the conversations between me and Robert Harvoy, he would be on his way to prison right now. The courts don't give a shit about us. The judges don't give a shit. We are a solid investment so far as they're concerned. People who are called mentally ill are cycled through the local jails to keep revenue going. You guys pay for that. It's just like the juvenile system. You know what? There are 5 kids every day who disappear or die in the system. 5 of them every single day. That may not seem like a lot, but it really truly is. This should not be happening. Seth Franco grew up in the system. He was suicidal. I was driven to the point that I was suicidal. And nobody was doing anything about it. Don't give me pretty words. Don't tell me advice. I know what's going on in the situation and you do not, because you are too busy giving advice. You're not spending enough time listening to what's going on. And now it is a 5-year journey through hell. I mean, it is so entirely complicated. Now, being able to use my telephone here, I can use my telephone to show my therapist the things that are going on, so that when I'm talking about something, it doesn't just sound like a bunch of crazy BS. I can back it up. And that's what's important. If you can show evidence, they can't call you delusional. If they prevent you from having access to that evidence and prevent you from showing it, they can call you whatever they want and get away with it and claim the evidence does not exist, especially when they have control of it. Now, here in Chapel, Nebraska, when you get electronic evidence, you're supposed to send it to North Platte. They are supposed to cycle all of the electronic evidence. Dual County knew that they were breaking the fucking law. They knew that they were committing felonies to hide the felonies that they had committed previously. They just kept my stuff down here at the cop shop for 7 months. They never sent it to North Platte. Meanwhile, they got the warrant for my crap by lying out their asses. And they don't find that violation of my rights anything that they should worry about because I'm broke. All of my money has gone to the courts and gone to trying to find a safe place to live, a place where I can work on the things that I need to work on. There's a lot of stuff that I have had to learn on the fly. There's a lot of stuff that people expect me to be able to do that, well, since all of my electronics are full of evidence, there's no room for your Cash App. There's no room for any of that on my phone. There's no room for any of that on my computers. Everything is full. Now, my therapist, I've been seeing her since I was in jail, actually. I believe July or August is the first time I ever got to run into her. She knows her shit. She's got over 40 years in it. And she also knows how screwed up the system is, and she talks about that a lot. People say that going to a therapist is going to fix it all. Really? Only if they're willing to testify in court. When I first started this whole journey, see, I've known I was different from everybody else my entire life. Okay, I can deal with that. At 18, everybody was telling me, "Hey, Shawn, you should go get disability. You qualify for disability. You should be getting disability. You should be getting disability." Well, first of all, nobody was helping me to get disability, and trying to do it by yourself is like beating your head against a brick wall. You literally need another human being with you, and that person needs to know what's going on. Otherwise, nothing will ever happen. I went into the workforce. I figured learning construction was probably the way to go. I went to Pine Ridge Job Corps Center to learn carpentry. It wasn't exactly a pleasant experience, but it wasn't exactly unpleasant. There were times when it was great, and there was times when it sucked. My first day when I got there and realized it wasn't just white people, like I was pretty excited. I got to admit, like I grew up in the system with minorities, and then I got dropped in Chapel, Nebraska with it's whitey Whiteville here. You know, you walk out in the summertime, if everybody's out at once, it looks like it snowed. Not literally, but I mean, a lot of white people and nobody else. I saw a black guy in Pumpkin Pantry the other day. I'm like, that brightened up my day just because I saw a black person. A lot of people who grew up in the system, they end up racist because the system itself is racist. Whether it's prison or the juvenile system, it doesn't matter. And I consider foster care a part of the juvenile system. You are treated as if you are there because you did something wrong. That's the mentality most of the people who are taking care of you have. You are there because you did something wrong. If you did something wrong, it's okay to put drugs in you. I just had the wrong parents. Seth Franco had the wrong parents. Natalie and Alicia Bollinger have the wrong parents. Natalie's dead. Had somebody else shoot her in the head. Assisted suicide. Seth Franco killed himself. I actually attempted suicide because my loved ones were having their lives and their children's lives threatened. And that actually, at the time, did include Shelley Campbell, who is one of Natalie's stepmothers, ex stepmothers. The Bollinger family worked together with a bunch of web wingnuts to fuck with me for a long period of time, promising that they were going to help, having other people do their dirty work for them, sending me pictures of guns, telling me they're going to hunt me down and shit like that. People saying that they're going to do that to my friends and family. There were a lot of people who said, "Hey, Shawn, I was defending you at first, but a lot of people are threatening my family now, dude. I got to fucking duck out. I hope you understand." Well, yeah, I do understand, but the thing is, it sucks because if you spoke up, something could possibly be done about it. But I'm a guy, so everybody says, "Hey, dude, nobody gives a shit. Nobody's going to do a damn thing for you because you're not a pretty white girl." I'm like, I know. The laws are there on paper, but in reality, I'm still a guy. Now, I started asking for people to kill me well over a year before Natalie was killed. The situation with Natalie in Virginia was really messed up. Her heroin addiction was not my fault. It wasn't my choosing. It wasn't my choice. I've never even tried heroin. But when you grow up in the system on those medications, you develop addictions and addictive tendencies. For her and her sister, especially growing up with the meth and the heroin in their dad's house, growing up with the partying life, there was a lot of guys who tried to live out their fantasies with them girls. That's not okay. These are still human beings, but at the same time, I mean, these are a bunch of younger guys, and these women are literally debasing themselves to these guys. That's not saying that it's okay because it's absolutely not. But I can't make their decisions for them. Can you? Even if I could have prevented Natalie Bollinger from hanging out with all of those heroin junkies that were going to give her the drugs because they wanted sex, even if I was able to stop people from doing that, even if I was able to keep people at a distance who are doing those things, where would I be today? Those are horrible behaviors. If she wants to do those drugs and you want to stop her from putting those drugs into her body, first of all, it's her body, not yours. Second of all, she's an addict. If you stand in the way of her and her drugs, or she sees a way that she can gain drugs by pretending that you're some sort of a horrible monster, she'll do it. Now, there's a lot of monsters that Natalie told me about in her life that I don't know if they're actually monsters or not. What I know is what Natalie told me about them. But then there's things that Natalie said about me that were completely untrue. How am I to know what she was saying that was true and what wasn't? How many of these other guys did she pretend are stalking her or pretend are monsters because they did as she asked? I've known a lot of manipulative women in my life and a lot of manipulative men. When you're in the system, you learn that fast, especially when you've got drug addicts who are parents. You learn that stuff. You don't get to not have that education. It is all around you in your living space at all points in time. You cannot escape it. You figure out what a teener is real quick. You know which one of mommy and daddy's friends that when they come over, it's time for you to go to your room. You know that when they go to the room with their friends and then their friends leave, they might come up the stairs. They might pay you a special visit and get a little too friendly. Meanwhile, families spend all this time trying to shut up the victims. Natalie Bollinger was not allowed to speak, just like me. But then she got all this help from people like Tim Beeson. So Tim Beeson is literally one of the people who is stalking me. And he's telling Natalie to ignore me when I'm trying to get her help to stop him and others from stalking me. I'm trying to get the police to do something about these asshats stalking me. When Natalie got shot in the head, I'd already been through over a year of hell. Now, how would Natalie be treated if I was the one who had succeeded in getting somebody to shoot them in the head? I've already proven that I asked for somebody to shoot me in the head. I asked multiple people to shoot me in the head. Almost a year before Natalie was killed. I mean, they made my life that much hell over a rumor that I supposedly stalked somebody who literally ran her vehicle into a tree because I was not there fast enough. You don't ask somebody to come see you who is stalking you. You don't ask somebody who is stalking you to Virginia Beach. You don't ask somebody who is stalking you to help rescue your stepmother. You don't ask someone who is stalking you to the pagoda in Norfolk. You don't ask someone who is stalking you out on their birthday. You don't give them birthday presents. These are not things that you do to somebody who is stalking you. You don't tell them, I used to think I was in love with you. You don't tell someone who is stalking you that you love them every single day. You just don't do those things. Now, if I had succeeded, let's say James had gone along with my deal to give him a vehicle and all of my money, and I had dug my own hole in the mountains, and he had laid me to rest right then and there. If that had happened in January of 2017, how would people have treated Natalie? Now, if you go further along, when it was an extremely fucked up situation with a lot of people victimizing me, and I am literally typing about it on my Facebook going, hey, I need help. But I'm not a pretty girl, so I'm not popular. I don't get 400 likes on one of my selfies. The system is just as screwed up now as it was then. Now, there's a few other things that I want to look up, so we're going to. This is Clearview Behavioral Health. Clearview is closed down. I was sent to Clearview when I tried to tell on Waylon Lolatai. Who is Waylon Lolatai? Well, let's look his name up. Waylon Lolatai. Copy link address. Hopefully this stuff right here will actually show up. I know a lot of times when I post a video, I don't get to see this stuff. It doesn't have the live chat on the side like it should. I don't know what changed, but it used to have it up there. I always click the option so that I can have have it later on, look at it, but you don't always get what you want. All right, this live stream is getting pretty long, so I'm going to end it. Y'all be safe. Have a good night.